Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us. As we meet with you here today, we await language on the resolution that the Democrats say they're going to put forward. We would just note, and we're going to hear more on this issue from the Republican leader of the Rules Committee in just a minute, Mr. Cole. But I would just note that what the Democrats are now trying to do, they've basically cooked up a process they've been conducting in secret. The goal of the process, the aim of the process, was very clearly to preclude the president's counsel from asking questions of witnesses. The goal of their process was to preclude Republicans from being able to call any witnesses. And they've now taken this process, they've gotten so much pressure because of the way they've been conducting the process. They're now attempting to sort of put a cloak of legitimacy around this process by saying they're going to bring it to a vote on the floor. They can't fix it. The process is broken, it's tainted. They have gone through this process where you have seen one side of the story. It's been an effort to get one side of facts and then to selectively leak those facts in order to taint the president. And we're not going to participate in helping them attempt to provide legitimacy to that process. It really is shameful what the Democrats have been doing in terms of attempting to try to impeach a sitting president in the basement of the Capitol. Now, I also want to say a word about something else that's been going on over the course of the last several hours and last night, which I think is also shameful. And that is questioning the patriotism, questioning the dedication to country of people like Mr. Vindman, Lieutenant Colonel Vindman, who will be coming today, and others who have testified. I think that we need to show that we are better than that as a nation. Their patriotism, their love of country. We're talking about decorated veterans who have served this nation, who have put their lives on the line, and it is shameful to question their patriotism, their love of this nation, and we should not be involved in that process. We need to make sure that we are abiding by, upholding the Constitution. Just because the Democrats refuse to do that does not mean that we ought to let ourselves be drugged down to the level at which they're operating, and we won't do that as Republicans. So I would now like to turn things over to Mr. Cole, the Republican leader of the Rules Committee, to discuss what's going on with the resolution.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Let me just be brief. First of all, we look on this process up to this point as being a very illegitimate process. And the Speaker cast the vote that we're going to cast on Thursday as being a vote that will affirm everything that's been done to this point. Obviously, we don't agree with that, so that makes that a very challenging vote for us. Second, we'll see a product, we think, later today when they post what we're going to consider in rules tomorrow and what will ultimately go to the floor. Frankly, we haven't had anything to do with whatever we're going to see. That we've not been involved in any negotiations. There's been no outreach to us. So whatever we see today is going to be totally one-sided in terms of only one side had input. I'm quite sure they didn't reach out to the White House either to discuss this. So this process, whatever it is not going to have been the product of a bipartisan discussion or compromise in any way, shape, or form. And finally, we'll look at this on Wednesday. We will have the ability to offer amendments in the Rules Committee, but that's a 9-4 committee that votes on a party line on essentially every vote. So we don't have a lot of hope for what's going forward. We think this is just basically more of the same. And frankly, a reflection of the fact that I think the American people have decided overwhelmingly this has been an unfair process. This is an attempt to dress it up a little bit, to try and give it the sheen of legitimacy, and I just don't think that's going to sell. So, again, we wait with bated breath to see what we're going to see whenever they post something. We wish we'd been part of the discussion to set that up, and since we weren't, I think it's going to be extraordinarily difficult for us to be cooperative going forward.
Thank you. Now I'd like to turn things over to the Republican leader of the Armed Services Committee, Mr. Thornberry, to talk about what's not getting done, in particular the support that we need to provide to our men and women in uniform while the impeachment process is going on.
Thank you, Liz. Across the political spectrum, folks have rightfully praised our military and intelligence professionals for taking a barbaric terrorist off the battlefield this past week. But it would be wrong to praise them with our lips and damage them with our votes. As y'all know, we have just about 20 days of military funding left. And even that is under a stopgap measure that prevents adjustments from being able to be made that reflect changes in the world. I think there are going to be some votes maybe as early as today in the Senate. But how can you justify praising the military but then not voting to give them the resources they need to do their job? They should not be caught up in Washington political squabbles on some other agenda, including impeachment. And as y'all know, we have a caps deal. We know how much we're going to spend on defense. There is no excuse for not getting that done before the expiration of this CR. One other point I want to make. ISIS is going to be looking for an opportunity to reassert itself. Assad and the Russians may come after the oil fields in Syria. Iran will, I promise, have some sort of attack in the future because remember their tankers were attacked a few weeks ago. Russia and China are going to be looked to take advantage of the situation thinking we're distracted. The men and women of the military and intelligence community are going to be tested again. The minimum they deserve from us is full funding for the rest of the year so that they can be assured they can meet that test with all that they, all the support that they need from us.
Thank you, Mac. We need to properly fund our nation's defense and not just stopgap measures. We've got to get full year funding for our military, and we've got to get it done quickly. Speaker Pelosi needs to end this infatuation with impeachment and start focusing on the real problems of this country that are not getting addressed, like properly funding our defense, like passing a bill to lower drug prices. When a bill came out of committee unanimously, every Republican and every Democrat voted for a package of bills to lower drug prices. That could be law today. People could be paying less money for prescription drugs, but Speaker Pelosi won't bring that package of bills to the floor because she's infatuated with impeachment. And so, as Mac talked about the importance of our armed forces, I want to commend our United States Armed Forces and President Trump for leading the mission that took out ISIS leader al-Baghdadi. This is a major victory for America's war against terror. It's critical to show the world that we're not giving up. In fact, we're going to continue rooting out anybody who wants to try to do harm to this country. If you look at what al-Baghdadi was doing just a few weeks ago, sending out recruiting videos, he's never given up on his efforts to try to re-establish the caliphate. What he's also been doing to try to encourage ISIS terrorists to escape from prisons. He can't do that anymore because he's finally been brought to justice. And so I commend our United States Armed Forces and President Trump for leading that important, critical mission. And we need to continue to support them, not just in words, but in deeds here in Congress. And finally, we still wait to see what Speaker Pelosi is going to file, but the bottom line is Speaker Pelosi admitted defeat in this failed process, this Soviet-style impeachment process that Adam Schiff's been conducting. The fact that over 75% of the members of Congress cannot go down and view what's happening in that room, can't listen and hear the testimony. By the way, that represents more than 230 million Americans whose voices are denied right now. 230 million Americans that can't find out what's going on in that room as well. And even the Republican members in that room can't call their own witnesses. Adam Schiff is the only person that decides who comes into that room and who's going to be able to testify. Everybody knows that doesn't pass the smell test. It is a Soviet-style impeachment process, and anything that would try to validate this tainted document that he's been creating for the last few weeks needs to recognize that it's not rooted in fairness, and the American people do believe in due process, even if Speaker Pelosi is trying to deny that to the president. So we will work hard to soundly reject any resolution that tries to validate the tainted document that Adam Schiff has been creating in secret behind closed doors. Now, our leader, Kevin McCarthy.
Thanks, Steve. Good morning. The confirmation of Baghdadi's death sent a clear message around the world that the United States is committed to destroying terrorism. Just this morning, the president tweeted and confirming the next in line, his confirmation is dead as well. we need to thank our intelligence community, our men and women, and this administration for their commitment and their follow-through. As Mac Thornberry said, the message was sent around the world. Now the message needs to be sent to Congress to do the job you're sent to do. Regardless of what party you're in, everyone believes you should do the work of funding of government. Most importantly, the funding of the military. We're 20 legislative days away. We have a short time frame, and all we're talking about is impeachment. We know the world's a little safer today based upon what our military and our intelligence community and our administration was able to achieve. Despite and contrary to what the media headline said, Baghdadi was not an austere religious scholar. He was, in fact, a murderer, a rapist, and met his rightful fate. Congress should act, and act now. I know we've got work to be done when it comes to USMCA, when it comes to trade for United States, Mexico, and Canada, our number 1 and number 2 trader. In a few days from now, we'll finish the talks with China, our number 3rd trader. Would we not be stronger in those negotiations if we had the USMCA done? And the only person that's holding that up is the Speaker. Because just like last night when she brought all the Democrats together to try to find out what they should write, because they admitted finally that they were wrong in this entire process, and they still can't come up with the agreement of what due process is to bring to the Rules Committee, just shows what a sham, the waste of time this has been. If this was before any court, it would have been a mistrial. But the people that are hurting the American public because the work that is not being done in Congress today, the funding of our troops, the funding of government, prescription drug prices, our trade, our strength to our economy, can all get done if they'd only focus on the work of why they were elected. It always reminds me that they promised that they would be different. They promised that the American public would trust them, that they would focus on the legislation that America cared. But what does the record say? They have offered more subpoenas than laws that have been signed. That's a sad fate for this country, and we could do much better. So open up for questions. Yes, ma'am.
Leader McCarthy, Democrats say you're moving the goalposts, that you've been demanding this vote, and now that it's happening, you say the process is still a sham. What's your reaction?
No, I applaud the Speaker for finally admitting it is a whole entire sham, but you can't put the genie back in the bottle. A due process starts at the beginning. It doesn't affirm a sham investigation all the way through. If you were in a legal term, it'd be the fruit from the poisonous tree. It'd be a mistrial. None of this information would go forward. But what's most important to the American public, we all have the phone call. We all have the transcript. We are all able to see there was no quid pro quo. The money was released. Ukraine did nothing and no action was taken. Where's the crime? Where's the impeachment? And what's the impeachable offense? The American public sees that. We should move on, and they continue to try to move a whole sham organization. It's not going to work.
So there's no
Yes.
way to make this legitimate?
Mr. Leader, Ms. Cheney mentioned Alexander Vindman in her opening statement. He's going to testify this morning that he thinks it's unethical and damaging to U.S. national security that the president was putting this pressure on Ukraine. You say, where's the impeachable offense? I mean,
Exactly.
what can you, I mean, this is a Purple Heart recipient who's saying that the president put politics above the nation's security. What's your response to that?
I thank him for his service. I think his commitment to this country, but he is wrong in this. We have differences of opinion, but more importantly, we have a rule of law. The entire country, the entire world has the transcripts. No one questions, was that the phone call? Even if you ask the American public from poll, even if you ask scholars, nothing in that phone call is impeachable. The president has a right. It was an open case. It wasn't about something in the future. It was something that transpired. All of America wants to know why we had to go through the Russian hoax. Why would not want to see that in the future for any president to witness that? But there is no quid pro quo, much what Adam Schiff said prior. Remember, Adam Schiff said he did not know who the whistleblower was, and we found out later he did. He said there was quid pro quo. Now we have the phone call. and there was none. They continue to make this system up. They have put America through a 2-year nightmare just because they did not like the outcome of an election. It's time to be different.
A couple of Republicans on the committee have mentioned the ability to call defense witnesses for the president. Mr. Scalise just mentioned it again. Who should Republicans call to defend the president?
I think from one standpoint, you have the transcript. What do you have to defend? There's nothing in that phone call that is impeachable. If they want to have a due process that we can offer witness, we would offer witnesses, but it's too late in the process. I'd leave that up to the committee. Yes, ma'am?
With respect to the, I think you were calling on me?
Yes.
With respect to the call, the transcript is actually not a complete transcript. It's a summary transcript. It's not verbatim.
It's
So
no
isn't
different
it-
than any other
but isn't
transcript
it
they do with
po-
any other phone call, and there's no other aspects within it. It's what is taken onto the call, transcribed by the individuals, and the technology they use, just like any other call in the process. That is all the information that we have, yes.
It's not possible, or isn't it possible that Lieutenant Colonel Vindman heard something in that call that was deeply troubling to him that is not reflected in the summary that you saw?
From every individual that I have heard that have come forward, even though Schiff does not let us speak about it, no one has said there's a quid pro quo. Even those who said that the Democrats said it was a very good witness, believe there's not. Even though we have the transcript, you have the transcript, something that no one has ever done before, and probably what the Democrats have done to weaken the office of the presidency for anyone in the future. How are those relationships going to be with any other foreign leader? Would they explain and give the true belief of what they think in the fear that it may be transcribed to the rest of the world? But you know what? We brought that forth because of the lies of Adam Schiff, so the entire world can see. And it is very clear the president did nothing wrong. So why are we continuing to go down this path, just like we had to the last time Adam Schiff lied to the American public? Simply because they disagree with the outcome. I do not question this man's service to this country. But you know what? People have different philosophical beliefs. Now we have the proof before us. We are a country of a rule of law. There's nothing in there that's impeachable, but there is also a lot of challenges before us. The funding of the American troops, the funding of our budget, prescription drugs, our trade, our economy, but none of that is being done. None of that is being worked on because of the obsession that the Democrats have with impeaching this president. Thank you very much.
Do any of you